What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of D. Haynes and Doc Fantasy Sports Podcast. I'm D. Haynes, and Doc is still on vacation all this month for his vacation time. So you know what? Let's get right into it because it's going to be a Week 16 that we're going to be talking about here now. Another very big, pivotal week for you guys in fantasy. And we're going to talk about a little bit of the game Thursday night between the Saints and the Los Angeles Rams, and then we'll talk about our normal stuff with our sleepers, our sit-ems, our start-ems for the week, and I will give you guys a little bit more in-depth stuff as well of other guys I kind of did some research on who we think should start, sit at certain positions, and then we'll kind of just go through all of the games, because I tell you what, there are a lot of NFL games this weekend. Merry Christmas to all. But including two games today between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cincinnati Bengals, and as well as the late game tonight with the Buffalo Bills against the struggling Chargers. That will be an interesting. But let's get right into it here. We'll talk a little bit about Thursday night football between the Saints and the Rams. Great game. It didn't look like it was going to be a great game at first. It was a little slow for the Saints. I feel like if they started playing like they did in the fourth quarter throughout the entire game, this game would be a little bit different. But man, I tell you what, the Rams are hot right now. Stafford is doing his thing like he's been doing the past few weeks, as well as the guy that I told you guys to kind of to be a little be on the waiver wire here, Derek Carr. I gave you guys a little bit of heads up earlier this week that he's going to have some good couple weeks coming up because he's going against some struggling secondary defenses, with Rams being one of them. And guess what? Derek Carr had 24.96. I'll round up to about 25 fantasy points this week. He had 319 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. He did have an interception, but man, he was dialed in that fourth quarter. And I can see him having another great game again next week against the Buccaneers. So if you guys need a quarterback, that's one just to keep your eyes on. But he, like I said, he had a great fantasy output. He was only projected 14 points, but I had a feeling that he was going to dice up the Rams secondary like he did. Had another phenomenal game, one of his best games of the year, fantasy value-wise. But man, oh man, if you had Puka, he is on it once again. It don't matter if Cooper Kupp's in the lineup or not, he's still going to thrive. I think Cooper Kupp only had 10 fantasy points, but Puka, 33 fantasy points. Unbelievable. It is crazy, man. Dude's amazing. To think he's only a rookie. I mean, Matthew Stafford loves throwing him the ball. He had 9 receptions for 164 yards with a touchdown, and he was targeted 11 times. And yeah, he actually had a couple carries too for 16 yards, but his average was 18.2 for his receiving average, and it's just, whoever had Puka this week probably had a phenomenal game. 33 fantasy points, unbelievable. He was only projected 14, and that's going up against a very solid Saints secondary defense. So Puka had himself a night, and so did some of these fantasy managers. But yeah, great game overall between the Rams and the Saints. Unfortunately, it came down to the fourth quarter for the Saints a little too late, but Puka just diced them all up. Had a phenomenal catch on one of the drives. But yeah, it was awesome. And then of course you had Williams, the running back from Notre Dame, had another phenomenal job. He's doing really good this year in fantasy as well as Robinson had some few good catches and a touchdown as well. He's slowly creeping into that lineup as well. But the Rams are dangerous right now. It's looking very, very promising for the Rams currently, and that's something to look out for when it comes into the playoffs here coming up. But we will now jump into, I'll just kind of get right into it. It's going to be a little bit shorter of a show since it's just going to be me. So we'll go with some of my sleepers for Week 16. And my first sleeper, I almost wish I could put him as one of my starters, but he's just been so inconsistent, and unfortunately, even the fans for the Atlanta Falcons are kind of upset because Bijan Robinson, the running back for the Atlanta Falcons, the rookie sensational star, should have had a better year this year, but unfortunately he wasn't used up like he should have been. But the Colts have given up 127.4 rushing yards per game this year, and so he could have a great game. Now, I say could, and this is the one reason why I put him on my sleeper instead of my starts. I say could because he was supposed to have a great game against the Carolina Panthers and had a terrible, terrible game. And the Panthers have one of the worst rushing defenses in the league. So this is another really bad rushing defense. Now, will he take advantage of it? I don't know. That's why I put him in my sleepers instead of my starts this week. It's all up in the air. He's kind of been very inconsistent, especially against these bad teams. Defensive-wise, I say, because I'm a Colts fan. I don't want to say bad team because, we almost making the playoffs. But no, yeah, so just be cautious on that one. He is a sleeper. I'd say flex position, but honestly, you could put him in an RB2 spot for your smaller leagues as well, I think, this week. But yes, Bijan Robinson's my first sleeper on that. My second sleeper, Devin Singletary for the Houston Texans. Now, he is going against a Browns defense. The rushing defense was very, very good at the beginning of the year, but now it's 15th among the NFL. So I think he'll get a lot of touches, especially with CJ Stroud being out once again this week. So I think if they develop the running game with Devin Singletary this week, I feel like they can beat the Browns. I know their secondary for the Browns is phenomenal. That's why they need to run the ball this week. So Devin Singletary, I think, is going to get a lot of touches. I say probably between 20 to 25 touches this game. And if that's the case, he's going to get a lot of fantasy value. So just keep an eye on him. If you have him, he might be a good flex spot for you. I wouldn't say RB1, RB2. But if you are in like a 12-man league, maybe an RB2 this game. But yeah, for sure flex option. And my other sleeper, this guy I could have put as one of my starters as well. But it's going against a defense with the Raiders that did pretty solid against the Chargers last week in the pass game. So Rashee Rice, the Raiders are 19th against the pass, but they will be eyeing and keeping their eye up on Travis Kelce this game, which then opens up Rice. Now listen to this, guys. The last 4 games, Rashee Rice has averaged 20.4 fantasy points a game. Yeah. Just let that sink in right there. This man's on a tear. And not only does that tell you he gets a lot of points per game recently, it tells you that Patrick Mahomes, I think, has finally found his number 1 wide receiver, especially since the other ones dropped the ball. Just saying. So Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce will be the two to keep an eye on this game, especially for the Raiders defense. They're going to be eyeing Kelce, so Rice is going to get a little bit more opening. I think he's projected about 17 fantasy points this week, which is actually the highest he's had in a while. So I think he has a pretty high ceiling against the Raiders this week. But now we're going to move over a little bit to my starts here. So we got my starts, and this one right here, Jordan Addison. I feel very comfortable saying this because they're going up against a struggling Lions secondary currently right now, and they are going to be focused on no other than Justin Jefferson. When you're focused on someone else has a lot more opportunity to shine. Addison will have a lot more opportunity to shine this week with Mullins. Now, he had a phenomenal game last week. I think he carries on to this week with another phenomenal game. I think having JJ in the lineup for him helps him tremendously, not only just because it gives him a little bit less target share, yes, but it gives him more value to increase his role into this offensive lineup because he doesn't have as much target on his back, and he doesn't have the number 1 cornerback on the opposing team on him. So he will take a little bit more advantage on the second CB with the Lions, and so I feel like Addison I think he'll score a touchdown. And I think he'll probably have about 12 to 15 fantasy points maybe this week. I think it's a must start, especially if you're in bigger leagues. This guy's a must start. I have him on my team. I actually have him as my flex option this week. So just look out for him. Another guy I'm super excited to talk about because he has been phenomenal as well these past few games, and that is David Njoku. I tell you what, Joe Flacco. It's crazy to say his name still. Joe Flacco, year of 2023, been in the league for 15 years. And he is just having a day with the Browns wide receivers and tight ends. But David Njoku was probably beyond happy when Joe Flacco was on the team because now he is Joe Flacco's number 2 target behind Amari Cooper. And I'll just tell you this right now. In the last 2 games, Njoku has averaged 26 fantasy points. He is getting the ball a lot. He's getting the ball in the end zone. And honestly, this week, I think he'll do the exact same thing with the Browns. I think, or with the against the Texans. He fares well with them, and so I think that he can take advantage of it. I think Njoku will be a big target this week with the Browns once again, and I feel like he'll go off again. So just take a look at that if you need a tight end, because I know these tight ends this year are kind of slim, and if somehow he's still out there or somehow he's on your bench and you're sitting him, unless you have Travis Kelce or TJ Hawkinson, I would start Njoku over anyone else other than those 2 I just said. Next guy, Breece Hall, is another guy I would like to start. He is going up against a Washington Commanders defense that has ranked second to last to the run. All I have to say. I mean, they have... he should have a heyday against the Commanders this week, especially if they get up early on in the game and somehow find a rhythm going and they start taking the lead. If they do take the lead, they'll definitely run it quite a bit, and I think Breece Hall will just be able to run all over the Washington defense. So I think he'll finally have another breakout game. I know last week he had a very, very terrible game, but the week before that I think he had 20 fantasy points. I think he'll have another between, I say 14 to 18 fantasy points this week. He needs to get in the end zone, I would say that. But I think he'll have a lot of rushing yards again this week against the Commanders. And now for my sits, the bums of the week. I hate to put Austin Ekeler in this category, but he has probably been one of the biggest bums from the very beginning of the year on people wasting their draft pick on him. I get it. I would have picked him too if I had the chance, but I didn't, and thankfully I didn't. But Austin Ekeler is playing, with them not having Justin Herbert in the lineup and them going up against the Buffalo Bills this week, which are once again on a hot tear. They just made the Cowboys, they just embarrassed the Cowboys last week. I think they'll run all over the Chargers again this week. I don't see it being a big competition. But Austin Ekeler, if that is the case, and the Bills are putting it to him again, they're going to have to probably be playing down the majority of the game, so they're going to be having to pass the ball. If that's the case, I don't see Ekeler getting too much fantasy value once again like they did against the Raiders. They were down majority of the game, and Ekeler had a terrible, terrible game. Now, given the Chargers had a terrible game that game, but, beats the point. Bills, as of late, rank fifth, top 5 against the run. So their defense has stepped it up against the run. And Ekeler, I feel like the only way he's going to get fantasy value is not on the run, not on the ground, but in the air. Only way I think he can get any fantasy value this week against the Bills. I hope he proves me wrong because I love the man. But this matchup this week against the Buffalo Bills is not looking promising for Austin Ekeler. As well as Terry McLaurin. He's going up against the best pass defense in the league with the New York Jets. And Yeah, Terry had a great game last week with, I believe it was like 26 fantasy points. This week, I don't see it. I do not see it at all. He's going to be one-on-one with Sauce Gardner, and I don't see him having a good game, and I also don't see Sam Howell having a good game. It's just, I think it's the end for Sam Howell. Fantasy, if you have him as a quarterback, I'd just say drop him. The next two matchups are not favorable for him at all. And Terry McLaurin, he has too many other guys like Dotson around him as well. That's just going to be able to get more targets in the middle of the field. And I don't think Terry McLaurin is going to have a game like he did last week against them because of the defense of the Jets is just too good against the pass. And my last one here is Kyle Pitts. And he has a decent matchup against the Colts. I think he fares about, the Colts are about around 20th against the, or 22-ish around the tight end. But at the same time, Kyle Pitts' year has just not been good. They don't give him the ball. And it makes me sad because it's two guys on the Atlanta Falcons that I feel bad for. And that's Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson. Those two guys, I feel like if they were on any other team that would use them as they should be used, they'd be great. They'd be great. Great fantasy value pickups. Bijan Robinson, like I said, will have, I think, a good, decent game this week. But Kyle Pitts, he's just intermixed with other tight ends. That's given him the lack of what's the word I'm looking for? He doesn't get the value as much as the other tight ends around the league because he just doesn't get targeted as much as what I think he should. And he has another tight end behind him, Arthur, that's playing alongside with him with the majority of the snaps as well with him. He's not giving it's split almost half and half. So Kyle Pitts, like I said, he has a decent matchup. I think he'll get some value, but I'm probably going to go 5 to 8 range for fantasy points, guys. So I don't see him doing too much, and I truly think the Colts will come in to Atlanta and beat them. Fingers crossed, hopefully, having some hope there. But yeah. But like I said, I told you with only me being on here as doing my three on each category with sits, sleepers, and starts. I want to kind of go a little bit more in depth on other people as well. So that's what I'm going to try to do here. And so I'll do 3 startums and about 3 sit-ems as well for Newport since he's not here. But these are kind of my personal sit-ems and startums for each position. So quarterback, running back, and tight end. I unfortunately didn't get to the wide receiver section, so I do apologize. But at least we'll have for these 3 things. So startums, I have Justin Fields against Arizona. I think he'll have a phenomenal game there. Arizona's defense is terrible this year, and Justin Fields is playing at home, which he does a lot better at home. Brock Purdy against Baltimore. I think Brock Purdy will do well again against Baltimore. It's just, he's in the MVP race for a reason. His fantasy value has gone up tremendously this year, and he has all the weapons around him to make him a great quarterback. And another one from today's game at Pittsburgh is Jake Browning, because this man is trying to prove himself to all the other NFL teams out there that he can be a starting QB, a QB1 somewhere else. And he's proven it, and he is getting his family up in Joe Burrow's press box now. But now this is at Pittsburgh. It's going to be rowdy there because it's going to be a big game for both teams. And Pittsburgh wants to go in there and ruin the Bengals' chances on making the playoffs. So I do think it's going to be a close game, but I think Jake Browning will have another good game as well. Sit-ems, I'd go Russell Wilson for the Broncos. I just think he's not going to have the best matchup there going against a tough New England Patriots defense, especially in the secondary here. I just don't see it doing too well. He is doing well, though, currently, but this game I think he's going to slump a little bit. And then, like I said before, Sam Howell going against the New York Jets. I just get him off your roster, guys. He's not going to have any good matchups, like I said, the next 2 games. And then another one is Aiden O'Connell. I know he had a phenomenal game last week, but he also was going into Arrowhead and playing against the Kansas City Chiefs. as being a starter going against the Chiefs at the Chiefs for the first time in your young career. It's going to be challenging. I do see, I know I didn't get the wide receivers going for you guys, but off of this topic, I do kind of see Myers having a decent game because they're going to be focused on Adams, and I feel like Myers has gotten a little bit more targets from Aiden O'Connell since last week. So I do see Myers probably going a little above his projected at 11. He's projected 11 fantasy points currently, so I think he will be going over his 11 this week. But it's just something just to be kind of keep your eye on as well. But yeah, that's quarterbacks. Now we'll go with the running backs. James Cook, I think he'll have a phenomenal week. I almost put him in my stardoms, and I think he should be in a stardoms if I had a bigger stardom thing. But that's why I'm doing this for you guys. James Cook, I'd say stardom as well. He's going against the Chargers. Their defense is terrible, guys. Terrible. They give up 60-some points to the Raiders, okay? Terrible. James Cook is phenomenal right now. I mean, just look what he did with the Cowboys. 170 yards on the ground. That's insane. He's going to have 270 yards against the Chargers. Not really, but, you know. It's possible. Who knows? He could make a record. He's not really going to do it, but, you know, he's going to have a phenomenal game. I think he'll go over his average. Bijan Robinson, like I hinted before. And then Derrick Henry going against the Seattle Seahawks run defense that's ranked 27th out of 32. So another great matchup there. You got DeAndre Swift against the Giants. That will be another great matchup for him. And then Ezekiel Elliott, we talked about him in the previous show. I think he'll have another great game again this week against the Denver Broncos, which are 31st against the run. So I look out for Ezekiel Elliott. I would put him as a flex option if you need that, with Stevenson being out as well, which increases his potential for this week. Siddums, this one's actually going to be kind of difficult for me to say, but I am going to say it because I do have him on my team, and my running backs are pretty slim right now. But Jerome Ford, I just don't see him doing too hot this week, going up against a Houston run defense that's actually is improved tremendously from the start of the year. They're actually ranked 3 now against the run coming into this week. So the only way I can see him kind of getting any value this week is in the short pass games. You got Najee Harris. I don't see him doing well against Cincinnati this week. Now I do have Warren doing a little bit better than Najee Harris this week, just due to the fact that I feel like he'll get more reps than Harris. But yeah, I'd sit Najee Harris if you have him, as well as Gus Edwards. He's going against a San Francisco defense that's hot right now, and that will be a very good game. I think it might be the game of a preview of the Super Bowl possibly this year. So that's my intent. But yeah, that's running backs for me, and then we'll go with the tight ends here real quick. For my stardoms, my other 3 stardoms, I'd have Evan Ingram at Tampa. Tampa Bay secondary is trash, and I think he'll have a excellent game against Tampa. Now, even if Trevor Lawrence isn't playing, I do still think that Evan Ingram will have a good game due to the dish downs with a backup quarterback being in. Not feeling comfortable going deep with him or with other wide receivers. And then Isaiah Likely at San Francisco. San Francisco's not the best against tight ends. They're ranked, I think, 26, I believe. And so Isaiah Likely, I think, will have another great game, or should have a great game against the 49ers. And then Siddums, Logan Thomas from the Washington Commanders, I'd sit. He's going against the New York Jets, one of the best secondaries in the league. Michael Mayer for the Raiders. I know he had a good game with O'Connell last week, but I don't see it happening again at the Chiefs. Plus, I know he is questionable. I know he didn't practice yesterday, so he might not even be ready for game time coming Monday, but it's still up in the air. As well as Gerald Everett against Buffalo. That's one I would kind of keep an eye on as well. It's tough, especially with the tight ends being so slim this year. It's going to be kind of hard to truly rank these guys against some of these competitions, but Gerald Everett I'd sit because he's going against a Buffalo defense that is hot coming off with the Cowboys. But yeah, those are some of the guys that to look at for this week. But also for the injury report, I am going to do one today and then tomorrow morning. But for today's games, we have the Bengals and the Steelers. Ja'Marr Chase is out, which is a big hit for the Bengals and Browning. You got the Steelers injury with Kenny Pickett still out, and I believe Rudolph is going to be playing this game. And T. Higgins, by the way, is another one you could have on the sleeper list because with Ja'Marr Chase being out, he's going to be another big target. And then we have the Bills and Chargers for tonight. Ty Johnson's questionable, and Keenan Allen is out for tonight's game with the Chargers. So, which is another hit. Another sleeper possibly is Palmer for this week with the Chargers, but I wouldn't put him in unless you are absolutely in desperate need of a wide receiver, because I don't think they're going to do too hot at all this week with the Bills. So yeah, we will now move on over to the Saturday game today with the Bengals at the Steelers and the Bills at the Chargers. Bengals at the Steelers, I'm gonna go with kind of like my picks with this one. Personally, I want the Steelers to win just because it will help the Colts out in the playoff run if the Bengals would lose. But I think it will be a close game. It might come down to the wire, I truly think. It depends on what defense shows up for both teams. The Bengals, I know, are losing. They lost a guy up front, so their running attack or their running defense might not be as well today as it normally is against the Steelers. And I think Warren might have a decent game. It's just about how their pass game is against the Bengals this coming up today, just because I think in order to win the game against the Bengals for the Steelers, they have to be able to pass the ball. They do. They just do. I think Browning will be accurate again. But like I have the Bengals winning by 3, but I think the Steelers can put up a fight and possibly win this game. Bills and Chargers for the late game tonight on Peacock. By the way, the other game's on NBC. But the Bills and Chargers are on Peacock tonight. And I do not think the Chargers have a chance in the world to beat the Bills right now. Bills are too hot. Bills are going to go in there, win this game easily. Might sit their starters in the fourth quarter by the time, who knows, with the score being how it could be, especially if the Raiders did what they did to the Chargers. Bills, it's going to be an easy win. Now, NFL Week 16 Pick'em. We have a lot of games today, guys. It's going to, or not today, but just this weekend in general. We got 2 today, a lot of games tomorrow. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games tomorrow. And then 10 games tomorrow. My apologies. And then we have 3 games on Christmas Day, which few of them I think will be great to watch. But we'll go over here just some of the games here real quick, and then we'll kind of see if you guys have any other questions. Other than that, we'll call it off. But so the first game we got is the Packers at the Panthers. I am picking the Packers on this one easily. I know Reed is still questionable yet for this week's game. I think he'll have a solid game if he is involved. But Aaron Jones, I think he will be playing this week, and I think he should have a good game against the Panthers this week. So if you do have him, I think he's a good flex option. But if you have anyone on the Panthers like Adam Thielen, I don't see him doing too hot. He might get 11 fantasy points, I'd say. So if you need a wide receiver, put Adam Thielen in. But ever since the beginning to the middle to the end of the year, it's been a whole different Adam Thielen. Beginning of the year, he was a top 15 wide receiver in the league, I think. Now he is maybe top 35, 40, pushing it. But I picked the Packers on this game pretty easily, plus the Packers need to win this game. Panthers, on the other hand, want to lose. You got the Colts at the Falcons. I have to go with the Colts. I'm a Colts fan. Got to go with the Colts. I'm going to pick them. I think Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, so Jonathan Taylor will be active in this game. He will start. And just a heads up, Zach Moss, if you do have him on your lineups, it just came in today that he will not be able to play tomorrow due to his injury from last week. So take him out of your lineups because he's not going to be playing. So Jonathan Taylor, I think he will. I know they're going up against a solid running defense with the Falcons, but I somehow think Jonathan Taylor will find a way to thrive and get into the end zone and have some good fantasy value coming back off of his injury this week. But I'm picking the Colts up. I'm picking them to win by 10, especially if their running defense shows up today. If their running defense shows up today with Grover Stewart being back up there, of course, I think this game is locked in for the Colts to win. You got the Browns and the Texans. That is a big game as well for both teams when it comes to the wild card play. Texans need this win to stay even with the Colts and try to squeeze in there. Hopefully they don't. I'm cheering for the Browns this week. The Browns also need this win as well to just try to catch up with the Ravens. If somehow the Ravens lose the next couple of weeks, they can catch up with them. But other than that, I think the Browns are going to come out on top against the Texans just because C.J. Stroud is not playing again once this week due to concussion. I think C.J. Stroud is a big loss when he's not in the lineup. I know they won last week against the Titans, but that's not saying much because they played against the Titans. Against a harder team with the Browns, I feel like the Browns are just going to kind of take advantage of them, especially with the Browns' defense has been lately, and not having that C.J. Stroud at your quarterback, having that weapon there, it's going to cost them. So the Browns are going to come out on top on this one. I think Amari Cooper is going to have a good game. Joe Flacco is going to have a good game. And David Njoku is going to have a good game as well. Washington Commanders and the Jets. I am going to go with the Jets. Jets. They have Trevor Siemian as quarterback this week. Zach Wilson will not be playing. And I think Breece Hall will be at RB1, RB2 lock in this week against the Commanders, like I said before. Garrett Wilson should have a good game as well. I think he'll get about what his projected is, or maybe just a hair touch over, maybe about 17 fantasy points. He needs a touchdown, that's for sure. And the offense for Washington is the only thing that's really keeping them alive in any games, and this week is not going to be showing up because the Jets secondary is just too good, and I think the Jets will take advantage of this, winning by about 14. Seahawks at the Titans. This is a must-win for the Seahawks if they want to stay alive. And they're going up against the Titans team that's kind of been struggling this year. Coming off a big, tough loss against Houston Texans last week off of a last-second field goal in overtime. And the Seahawks coming off a giant win against the Eagles last week. Plus, Geno Smith is probably most likely going to be starting for the Seahawks this week. So, I think Jackson Smith-Njigba and Tyler Lockett will be a good sleeper for this game. If you guys have them, I might lock them in as a flex option if you're in bigger leagues this week, because I truly think they'll take advantage of the Titans. Their secondary is ranked 27th out of 32. Not that hot. So take a good, especially with Geno Smith in the backfield too. Have them as your flex option if you do have them. But yeah, Seahawks, I say they're going to win 10 plus. I'll say that. And then the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I do believe Trevor Lawrence he's still questionable currently as we speak. The way it's looking, he might not be playing in this game, which would be a huge, huge loss for Jacksonville. And Baker Mayfield will take advantage of this because he is staying hot right now, and the Jacksonville secondary is ranked 25th. And I truly think Mike Evans, Chris Godwin will have a great game against a struggling secondary for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Plus, guess what, guys? The Buccaneers have a struggling secondary as well, which are 28th ranked. So, that's one thing you got to look at as well. If you have a Jacksonville wide receiver like Ridley, it's just tough though, because when it comes to is if Trevor Lawrence is starting or not. If he is, those wide receivers will shine against the Buccaneers. If he's not, they might have a tougher time to get any looks, just due to not being comfortable with the QB. Ridley, I could see him having about 10 to 14 range fantasy value this week. Or he could have a big game. If he gets in the end zone, I think he'll have a big game against the Buccaneers. I don't care who's at quarterback. Just because of the Buccaneers secondary is terrible and Ridley's speed is unbelievable. But that's one guy I would look at for sure. Next we got the Lions and the Vikings. I truly think the Vikings will have a great game against the Lions, because the Lions need this game if they want to get good positioning for the playoffs. But the Vikings right now are playing for their playoff berth currently, especially after a big loss with the Cincinnati Bengals last week. They need to win this game. It's a must win, especially with the Saints losing. It's a must win. So just look out for Addison. Like I told you before, he's going to be getting a lot of open looks this week, just due to the fact that JJ's back in the lineup. So everyone's going to be worried about him. Lions, Gibbs, I can see having a decent game this week. The rushing defense for the Vikings are pretty good. So just take in caution with that, with him and Montgomery. Those two guys will have decent games, but I don't think they'll have a boom game. As well as Goff, I don't think he'll have a boom game average. I think he'll just stay around his average this week as well. I will actually pick the upset in this game. I'm going with the Vikings over the Lions by about 3. Next game, this one is going to be kind of easy for me. This will be the Arizona Cardinals at the Chicago Bears. I'm going to go with the Bears just because the Cardinals defense is terrible. I think Justin Fields will rip them apart. I actually have him as my starting QB in my league this week over Mahomes, just due to the fact that I think he has more ceiling than Mahomes does against the Raiders. So I have Fields as my QB1 this week, just due to the fact with his rushing ability, and due to the fact that his defense that he's going up against is one of the worst defenses in the league. So I am going, and Kyler Murray is going to, I have him as my other QB on my bench, but I don't see him. If you have to play a quarterback and it's the only one you have, play him, of course. But if you have anyone else, play someone else, because the Bears defense right now is solid, dude. It is unbelievable. Ever since Sweat has made it from Washington to the Bears defense has been unreal and completely flip-flopped. So I don't see Kyler doing too hot this game, especially with Marquise Brown. He's going to be out again this week. James Conner, he's going to have a tough game on the ground. It's another guy that if you have him, I'd probably bench him this week, or if you need him, I guess play him. But it's one guy you should probably not play this week due to the Bears defense as of late. Bears winning by, I won't go too high. I'll say 14. I wanted to say 17, but I'll keep it at 14. I'll give the Cardinals a shot. All right, then we have the Sunday game at 4:25 as well. So is the Bears, but this game will be a bigger game than the Bears. Would be the Dallas Cowboys at the Miami Dolphins. This one I'm actually really looking forward to because I like the Cowboys. But the Dolphins, man, they're clicking, even without Tyreek. I know Tyreek is questionable. He's still it's still up in the air if he's going to be able to play tomorrow or not. That's why I'll have the injury report for you guys tomorrow morning, just so you guys have everyone locked and loaded, to see who's going to be able to go in, who's going to be able to start, and who's not be able to be on your bench. I have the Cowboys. I'm going to have to ride with the Cowboys because I want the Cowboys to win. So I'm going to have the Cowboys winning by about 10. It's going to be close, I think, but I'll say 10. They've got to do good on the road, man. If they lose this game, it's going to be devastating for them, and it's not going to be looking good for them going into the playoffs because they're going to have to be then playing on the road in the playoffs. They might get out first game if they can't win on the road. Unfortunately, it's sad to say that, especially with how their year has been as of late. But if they have another game like they did against the Bills, it's a wraps for them this year. Especially with the speed that Miami has. I don't think Miami's going to be able to run the ball too hot, but who knows? James Cook ran the ball perfectly fine against them last week, so Cowboys need to step it up. I know Dak is without one of their top offensive linemen this game, but hopefully that doesn't hurt him too much. But I'm gonna pick the Cowboys to win this game just because I want them to win this game. But I do think the Dolphins have a chance of winning this game, especially if the same Cowboy team comes out like they came out last week. If not, if it's the old Cowboys like they play at home, Cowboys all the way. But no. And then we got the night game on Christmas Eve, the Patriots and the Broncos. Woo! What a game, guys. Not. Broncos all the way. I'm going to pick them up. I do think this will actually be close, or closer than it needs to be, especially with Elliott being the starter over Stevenson right now, since Stevenson will not be able to go again once this week. Elliott will be taking the throne again, and I do think Elliott will have a great game against the Broncos. I think he will have a touchdown, whether it's on the ground or in the air. I think he's average, right, or his fantasy value currently is 15.9 fantasy. That's what he's projected this week. I think he might get that or a little bit more. Just because the Broncos, they are literally ranked 32, dead last against the run this year. I know they have progressively gotten better as a whole unit, but I just don't see it being the case for the running game currently. But I do think Russell Wilson will. I know I have him on the sit list for you guys this week, but I do see him doing enough to get his Broncos a win. It will be close, but I think he'll do enough to do what it takes to get the Broncos a win this week, but I don't think he'll give you enough fantasy value for your team. And then the last 3 games, Christmas Day. Merry Christmas, guys. At 1 p.m. on CBS, we have the Raiders at the Chiefs. I am going with the Chiefs on this one. I know they've been struggling, but at the same time, I don't see the Raiders going into Arrowhead and getting a victory. It will be close, I think, in the beginning, but the Chiefs will run away with it towards the end. I think the Chiefs will win by at least 14. Devontae Adams just has to have a great game. I think that's the only way they're going to win this game, if they do, is if they had the same pass attack like they did against the Chargers. But the Chiefs have a lot better defense than the Chargers, that's for sure. Eagles and the Giants. Giants at the Eagles. It's going to be on Fox at 4:30. I think that the Eagles will win this game pretty easily. They should win this game pretty easily. If they don't, something's wrong. But I think the DeVito magic is going to be running out here. It's just going up against too good of a team with the Eagles. I know they've lost 3 straight. But going back to home field advantage will help, especially against the Giants, which is a team that's not doing too hot at all. Matter of fact, they're ranked 32nd against the pass right now. I think Hurts will have a phenomenal game against the Giants. And then the game we are all waiting for. 8:15 on ABC, prime time on Christmas Day. What I truly think could be the preview of the Super Bowl this year. The Baltimore Ravens at the San Francisco 49ers. Great game, guys. I don't even really want to call who to win on this game. I just want it to be a great game in general. I think it will be a great game. You got Lamar Jackson versus Brock Purdy. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be a great challenge for McCaffrey, I think, this week. With the Ravens being number 2 against the run currently. So I think that's going to be a good challenge to look forward to, is how the Ravens defense versus McCaffrey matchup is going to be. I see Brock Purdy still doing really good on through the air against the Ravens defense. You got Samuel that's playing lights out right now. Brandon Ayuk that's doing good. You got Kittle. It's just too many weapons on the offensive side, guys. It's going to be difficult to win. But I'm going to say it right now. The trend is going to stay alive for Monday Night Football as of this year, and the underdog will prevail, and I am going to go with the Ravens over the 49ers this week, guys. Ravens over the 49ers. You heard it here first. That's what my pick is going to be. It will be a close matchup. Justin Tucker might hit a field goal with no time remaining to win the game. It might come down to that. But I think either way, the Ravens will somehow win this game. I think Lamar Jackson will be fast enough to avoid Chase Young as well as Bosa. He might get sacked a few times, but I think he'll have enough speed to outrun them a few times around the pocket. So I'm gonna go Ravens on this one. And it's difficult to say, but it's gonna be a fun game, guys. It's gonna be a fun game to watch. But other than that, guys, that's really all I have for today. If you guys have any other questions about your start, sits, and sleepers, or who you guys think you should start, I'll give you about 30 seconds so you guys can put it in the chat. Other than that, guys, I'm going to sign off, and I'll get the injury report tomorrow morning for you guys for these upcoming games on Sunday. But, guys, it's a fun weekend. You got tons and tons of football every single day. And you got the holidays around the corner as well. It's going to be great. And you know what? It's playoff time, baby. And you know what? Playoff matchups this week as well, once again. So it's great to see. But if you guys don't have any other questions, I'll sign off here. Please, guys, if you guys are watching, like and subscribe if possible. If you have any questions, please comment below. I'm glad to answer any of the questions that you guys have. If you have any matchup questions as well on who do you think should start or who do you think should sit, bring it my way. I'm glad to give you my opinion. Other than that, guys, have a great, great holiday weekend.